let's talk about Merrick Houston. So Merrick Houston, the Twins' first-round pick, 16th overall, signed out of Wake Forest, a signing bonus of just under $4.5 million. Before we talk about Houston, Jeremy, I think we can now safely speculate. That Merrick Houston was not necessarily the guy the Twins wanted to take with this pick. I think, and this is conjecture, this is not me sharing information. I think it's reasonable to assume that the Twins were in on a cluster of prep infielders, most of whom were selected right ahead of where the Twins picked. Two names I would pay particular attention to: Daniel Pierce, a shortstop out of Georgia, who you were particularly fond of, if I remember, who was taken by the Rays, I want to say at 14. And then Gavin Feen, a prospect who I was particularly fond of, more of a offensive profile over a defensive profile, taken by the Rangers, I want to say at 12. The Twins landed Merrick Houston at 16. Here's how he did. He saw two levels in what we could describe as a solid pro debut, and it looked very different at Fort Myers to Cedar Rapids, I think it's fair to say. So 12 games at each level. At Fort Myers, he hit 374, 24, 444, good for a 149 WRC plus, walked 8.5% of the time, struck out 22% of the time. Moved to Cedar Rapids, did hit his first professional home run down the stretch there. But in 12 games at Cedar Rapids, hit 152, 220, 239, walking just 5.9% of the time. Strikeout rate was better, 15.7% of the time, a WRC plus of 33. So overall impressions, Jeremy, of Houston's debut. Obviously, he trailed off at the end of the year there. Any concern there? What do you make of how he started life as a pro?
Yeah, I think, I've said a number of times, I don't make a ton of pro debuts, whether really good or really bad. He came from the SEC. It's a long season, very competitive.
ACC.
And certainly held his own. Got to Cedar Rapids where it's like, this is a sneak peek of what you're going to do next year.
Yep.
And, overall with a less than 20% strikeout rate, seven stolen bases, didn't walk a ton, didn't really hit for power, but made it through his short season debut healthy, right?
Yep.
And we'll get a winter now to prepare for his first spring training. I'll be curious to see if he gets like a non-roster invite, just because I think with the team being younger, it may make some sense to just have him there earlier, right? I don't think there's any, wild ideas that he's going to make his big league debut, but to just get him there, he's going to, I think, looking at that position, Brooks Lee's going to get the first opportunity, right? Culpepper is going to be a step and a half behind.
Yep.
And then a step and a half behind that, you're going to have Merrick Houston. And I think long term, he's going to be a shortstop. Whether he can be a big league regular on a playoff team, that all remains to be seen. But I think given what his ability is, and given what today's managerial news is, like, Merrick Houston maybe fits the Nick Punto mold better than most.
Come on,
right?
come on.
So, but no, there's nothing to be discouraged about. Numbers obviously weren't ideal, but when you can get your feet wet, stay healthy, and then have an opportunity to kind of launch into your first full season, I think it's as good as anybody could want.
I'm going to take a smidge of a different angle to talking about Houston. And while I agree with you that there's nothing necessarily to be discouraged about, if you were a Merrick Houston doubter, I think you could fit his performance at Cedar Rapids to your narrative of why you have doubts about his profile, right? So the scouting report coming out of Wake was exceptional defender. I mean, we saw, and I think, and I'm curious of other folks' opinion on this, tell me I'm wrong, that Twins player development account started posting way more defensive highlights in the last month or so of the season from the minors. Houston looks super slick with the glove, but the concerns on the scouting reports were, is there going to be much extra base impact? And that's That's fine if there's not, because the hit tool is solid, the bat to ball skills are solid. He can steal, he can run, he can certainly defend, but an OPS of whatever it was at Cedar Rapids,
Well, 680 overall.
680 overall, 459 at Cedar Rapids, and of course that's a tiny sample. I think that's going to be really like the most basic metric to kind of track his performance early on in 2026. And if he can just be like 700 to 750 throughout his minor league career, you're going to take it.